Wait a second.
It's on, Joe.
Oh, we're on. All right. Good Thursday evening and welcome to This and That, the podcast. I'm your host, Joe Gilloway, and along with my partner, Bill Bostic, we hope to bring you guests and topics you'll find both fun and captivating from the worlds of local politics, arts and leisure, pop culture, and beyond. Our sponsors for, I don't know if we're live or not, Bill.
It says end stream
I
on
don't
my
think
end, and it's counting.
I don't see that we're live. Let's no, I'm not showing that we're live. Folks, we do not have a producer for this
There's
because
one
we don't
person watching, two people watching.
that's going to be I think us.
Oh,
Joe Gilloway is watching and This and That the podcast are watching. Let me do something here. Bill, I'm sorry. All right. Well, let's just assume because it's going to be on YouTube either way. Okay.
all right.
So if it's not showing live right now, then we'll just have to repost it later because we have our guest waiting for us in the green room. And our sponsors for This and That, the podcast, are the Robert H. Hoke American Legion Post 272, Team PA, AAU basketball, and of course, Rickabaz Electric. Thank you to these great local businesses for their continued support of This and That, the podcast. We really appreciate it. Bill, how are you?
I am. It's Thursday. Looking forward to Friday. How's that explain it?
That explains it. Fridays are usually good. What's good about Friday this week for you?
Well,
Closer to the weekend, is that it?
we close of a week and heading down to our cabin on Saturday night for an event, a gathering in the woods,
Okay,
and we'll see what other kinds of trouble I can get into along the way.
that's good enough. Okay, and do you know what episode number this is, Bill? It's
It's
been a
either
while.
38 or 39. I'm not
I'm
sure
gonna
which
I'm
one.
gonna give you that. It's 38.
Okay.
Yeah, very good. So this is the People's Podcast, Bill, and that's because we allow the people to contribute. We have a comments and question field, and we allow the people to come in. The people being the viewers or our supporters, our followers, to come in and get involved in the show if they're so inclined. And we also allow them to recommend guests and topics that we have used our supporters guests and topics in the past. So that's pretty fun. Upcoming, we have this guy here. Boy, am I excited for this. Dr. Bob Lombardi. He is on his way out. He's retiring altogether. He's been the executive director of the PIAA for quite some time now, done a great job. And I'm excited to have the opportunity to get to know him a little bit better. I cover high school sports, so I have been involved with him to a degree, a small degree, but I mean, this guy's it's a very demanding job, and he's really stood up and done a great job doing it for quite a number of years. So,
Hey, Joe, do you know who he replaced years ago? Remember the prior executive?
Brad,
Yep.
gosh darn,
Cashman.
Yeah, Brad Cashman.
He was a neighbor of mine in Dillsburg.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh.
He was a football coach at one point at Northern High School. Brad
Okay.
Cashman was, yeah.
All right.
He's still
So,
trying to get it on the air.
yep. You know what? We're live on the YouTube channel. We're live on my page.
Okay.
So we're live enough, is what I'm saying. And again, we're enough live that people are going to be able to.
We're on life support. We're on life support.
No, we're past life support. We're doing better than that. Anyway, let's bring our guest in, Bill. Man, we're excited for this. I know I can speak for you and me when I say that we are excited to have this guy on as a guest. We've had him on before, but just in a limited capacity. He came in as a Central Dauphin School District board member last time only.
Yeah.
So we only talked about Central Dauphin's school district stuff. But this guy's, we like to use the term public servant. I would never, ever call Eric Epstein a politician. Okay. Spoiler alert: our guest is Eric Epstein, folks. But he's a true.
He's also an advocate.
I was getting there.
Okay.
Advocate, activist.
Yeah.
And that activist term gets kind of, people don't like that either sometimes. But nobody likes an activist until they need one, or till there's one standing up for them. It's just like an attorney that chases ambulances. Nobody likes them until they need one. But let me get back to what I was saying. Is Eric Epstein is a true public servant. He's a true activist and advocate. Not using the terms loosely at all. He does it. He rolls his sleeves up, and he gets involved in what matters the most to his community. So let's bring him in. Eric Epstein. How was that introduction, Eric?
That was good. I mean,
did we nail it? Did we nail it?
I mean, there could have been some more accolades, and I'll make suggestions later.
Well, you don't come across as an accolades guy. That's why.
No, I'm not. And it's an extremely busy time of the year. I mean, at Rock the Capitol, we redid our website, and we've been around for over 20 years. We were formed after the pay raise. And we just did a spot for PCN, and
I saw that.
Because I think a lot of people, just don't remember what the pay raise was about. But in fairness to the legislature, the pay they received in the 70s was inadequate. So, right. It was raised, and it was a modest raise. In 95, it was Act 51, raised the pay, not just for the legislature, who always gets hammered, as they should, but for the judiciary and the executive branch. The judiciary has the highest multiplier in Pennsylvania government. And so what happens is, regardless of performance or non-performance, there's a rate increase every year, and it's tied to the COLA, the cost of living adjustment for Philly, Delaware, and New Jersey. It's rather high. I would like them to tie it to Clearfield County and see how people felt about that. Right. But what happens is, it's raised. This year it was really hard to figure it out because the government was shut down. So we were finally able to figure it out. It was 3.25%. Again, legislature, judiciary, and members of the executive branch, so that it goes into effect December 1st, so people can get a pension bounce on the way out. Your pension is based on the 3 largest years of your salary. So people were saying, well, it's kind of funky. Why is somebody getting a raise on December 1st if they're not going to be, installed in office to January? So this has been an age-old battle. The public is overwhelmingly behind the notion that a raise every year, especially this year, you're 135 days late in getting a budget done. Yeah. While you're doing that, I forget who I worked on a story with. There was like a record number of fundraisers. So not only weren't they getting the budget done, is they were doing fundraisers. Look, the governor went to Canada. A number of legislators went to Ireland. There's just a lack of urgency and not understanding that schools, libraries, social services get hurt. So I think we need to seriously consider a couple options. Part-time legislature gets rid of all this. That's not going to happen. Compensation commission staffed by civil servants may make it happen. But for right now, we're the third largest. Well, actually, we're the first largest legislature that's full-time. New Hampshire has like 400 folks, and they work a month and get $100. Somehow they actually get things done for $100.
Wow.
But the most expensive legislatures, California, New York, Pennsylvania, that's one thing in terms of pay. In terms of a compensation package, we have 253 legislators that when they come in, they make 113 grand a year now. And you have little, I hate to say it, no value in lawmaking until you've been there for a while. So you're just going to, literally, if you're around the Capitol, you talk to people and say, look, we have nothing to do. We're not involved. So they're coming in. It's a Cadillac healthcare system, a very good healthcare system. And for most of the guys, it's still defined benefit. So they're not going to give that up. Why would you unilaterally disarm, if things are going that well?
Yeah, you didn't even mention the per diems.
That's what I was going to say too. I think some people, especially in 2025, And with all the increases in inflation, some people might think, well, 113,000, that's really not a through the roof salary if somebody has, a spouse and 3 kids and all that. But when you add the plus, 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 which is pretty much not having to spend a whole lot of that 113,000 on you and your job, it really adds up, right, Eric?
Yeah, look, if we go to the Legislative Audit Advisory Commission, we've been going for 20 years, and that's when essentially you have a fake audit by the legislature of itself. And if you start looking in the nooks and crannies, they're holding on now to a record amount, 300 million. 500 million to operate the legislature, 300 in the slush fund. And then remember, the per diems are tax-free. Now, there's per diems that would qualify for being taxed, but for the most part, they don't have to hand anything in for a per diem. They can go and make a claim and get the money. At one point, I don't know if I can't think of his name, Representative Harkins from Erie. When we looked at the days that he was using, it was like Easter. 4th of July, almost as bad as the bad old days with Mark Cohen. So, yeah, and I understand what you're saying. If you're in Philly, yeah, maybe it's not enough, so we can figure that out. But your performance this year, they got a raise. Your performance was awful. I don't know how you can reward somebody for not getting the job done, and I think 75% of Pennsylvanians agree with that. Unlikely to stop because of this. The governor does not want to piss off the legislature. And the judiciary, you want to keep them happy. Now, the legislature funds the judiciary. So it's this, evil triangle. And going into this, to be honest with you, I always thought of the judiciary as those judges in marble who were above politics, but nothing could be further from the truth. So, we focused on the pay raise, and we had a program now for 5 or 6 years. You can check it out on our website. It's called the ABCs. So we track authorities, boards, and commissions that nobody else covers, like the Pennsylvania Turnpike Commission. We were there the other day. Again, a rate increase every year. We get up to speak. They don't respond, they don't deliberate, and then they authorize millions of dollars, actually billions by the end of it. We do the Liquor Control Board, the Gaming Control Board. So we go to all those. We don't make a comment until the end of the month, and folks can look at them. Yesterday, we were at the ICA, which is an agency most people never heard of, and it's the Oversight Board for Harrisburg. And Harrisburg is a train wreck. When you go to these meetings, and Rock the Capitol is usually the only one there, the things they've been asked to do, they haven't done. They still don't have an economic development plan. They don't have a handle on their pension. They're still borrowing, stealing, whatever you want to call it, from the neighborhood fund. And they're likely to get off Act 47 without a good plan in place. And this is concerning if you live in Lower Paxton or nearby, because the city is not in great shape, and the county's going to need to raise taxes for another year or two. When you don't raise taxes and increase services, something's going to have to give. So the last thing I'd point out is we just did an expose on Governor Shapiro, and
Rock the Capitol did.
Yeah. His he has total lack of an ethical barometer. He's a popular guy. We personally don't like each other. He's still pissed off. When he was running for governor, I asked him to do the same thing I asked Tom Corbett. You cannot be a full-time attorney general and a full-time governor. If you're telling me, then when you were not running for governor, what were you doing? Well, you're a full-time attorney general. So I did ask him to step down. We were at a fundraiser together. He looked at me. And he says, "There's Eric Epstein." He says, "That's the guy that keeps asking me to resign." I said, I said, "It's a resign to run. It's not you." He said, "Doesn't matter. Every time you say that, I win." It's like, okay, well, whatever, dude.
Hey, Eric.
Yeah.
Whenever Corbett was running, I got on a PCN show and asked him about this, running and being the attorney general. He said, "Well, that's not really why I was on the show, but I do have two telephones. One's
Yes.
my attorney general phone. One's my candidate phone.
He was not the sharpest knife in the drawer. He had great hair though, probably the best hair of any governor. And Dennis Owens asked him that question. He did the same thing.
Okay.
And I was in the media room and we're going, that it's not answering the question. I never saw a governor who didn't want to be a governor to the extent of him. It was just bizarre. But thanks for asking the question. And that was his deal.
Let me ask you, can we back up like 45 years? Now, the only reason I want to do that, Bill, I think you know where I'm going. I think we discussed this last night.
I'm waiting.
I want people to know how you got into activism.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Now, I don't know if it was with 3 Mile Island. I don't know if it was before that or not, but I'm not going to say you made your bones, because the goal of an activist isn't like make bones, but I think that you kind of put yourself on the map and people started to recognize you and what you were doing through your coverage of 3 Mile Island, of the meltdown or whatever you call it. Do you mind if I back up 45 years or so? And how old were you? I mean, you were, and I'm not asking, maybe you were young. You were in your 20s back then.
So I went to college in California because I'm from here, Lower Paxton, Dauphin County, and I thought I lived in the most boring township, in the most boring county, in the most boring state. I moved to Southern California.
Yeah, that's a 3-time loser there.
Yeah. I moved to Southern California and immediately realized, man, that's a mistake. You know, we've got clean air, a lot of green, people aren't on top of each other. And while I was there, I began volunteering, working with 2 groups. Ironically, the Catholic Worker, the Catholic Soup Kitchen group, where I first got arrested. Here's a tip.
Is that a rite of passage, by the way? I don't mean to interrupt you. Are there any good activists that have never been arrested, Eric?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure there are. I mean, the issue is there any good activists who have never been arrested and served time? I mean, because the powdered eggs in jail aren't something to live for. But I didn't realize the demonstration was in Anaheim, and the Anaheim cops don't like anything disrupting Disneyland. So, you know, I did a couple of days in jail, got out, just, then started to work for the Alliance for Survival, which was a group that was critical of nuclear. But I've always had it. I was very pro-nuclear growing up until I started asking 3 questions, and I still haven't got an answer for those 3 questions in 45 years. Where's the water going to come from? Water's a commodity. You don't have a right to it. You've got to apply for it. And right now, it's a very precious resource. The second issue is, where's the waste going to go? For 45 years, people have been telling me it's right around the corner. I mean, that's a hell of a long corner. And the reality is, with nuclear waste, it's not human time. It's radioactive time, which means forever. So right now at TMI, you have 700 metric tons of high-level waste on an island in a river that empties into a bay. The worst possible geologic location. So if the plant gets built, that's another 600 tons in addition to TMI 2. So the third question is, and the one that I've always talked about the most, are the economics. If nuclear power is so good, is so great, is so promising, why is nobody in Wall Street investing in it? And why has it never been profitable? Now, to be fair, Japan, France, UK, wherever, it's a state-owned monopoly. But now we have a situation with Governor Shapiro where he decided he's going to put his thumb on the nuclear scale. If you look at this, and then I'll probably do a better job answering your question, most people don't realize that Pennsylvania is the largest exporting state of energy. We export 30% of our energy, and this may bleed into another question about data centers. So with 3 Mile Island became consumer advocacy because of the cost overruns and the expenses. So, 45 years ago, the nuclear issue then led to the consumer issue, then led to the water issue. And I've probably litigated, 70, 80, 90 cases. I'm probably I maybe have won one or two. I mean, it's, we're doing a PPL rate increase case, and this is
Yeah.
what people need to pay attention. So your bill went up 3.7%. It's for capacity. If you look on the back of your PPL bill, you'll see a box that says energy. Under energy, it'll say capacity. You're paying to reserve energy or preserve energy options for the future. Today at the PUC, I don't know if anybody covered it, the distribution service charge, which goes up every 3 months. Every 3 months, and that's for infrastructure upgrades. It used to be 5%. It just went up 9%. We're currently in litigate. If I wasn't on the show tonight, I'd be up at Wilkes-Barre. That's the last of the 6 hearings. We're currently litigating the distribution. All for a rate increase. Everything I said is not generation. You can choose generation. You cannot choose distribution. You cannot choose transmission. You have to pay the disc. You have to pay the capacity cost. So electric driven by data centers is becoming the new turnpike. You're going to continue to pay a higher price for less service. In fact, we testified at the turnpike this week as if we didn't have enough to do. And we were like, by the way, we were here in March when you raised your salaries by an absurd amount of money. There was no public discussion. And we let them know, because it's Christmas. Well, we're going to sue you after the new year and find out why. I mean, it's like, it's really kind of chilling when there's 90 people there, and I'm sure they're not having positive thoughts about you. But so that bleeds into what I got involved with the pay raise. Pat Carroll, Patriot News, called me and said, I want to have a demonstration. And I said, well, that's good for you, Pat. Why are you calling me? He said, I want you to organize it. I said, yeah, no. All right. So we got sucked into organizing it. And 20 years later, our most successful campaign are the ABCs, authorities, boards, and commissions. Sometimes they intersect, sometimes they don't. But kind of to backtrack to your original question is why I got active, and this may seem very unusual. In California, after the accident at 3 Mile Island, Harrisburg was the butt of jokes, was the focus of SNL skits. And I just got pissed off. People knew I was Harrisburg. And, I'm sure it just got tired of hearing it. Came back and walked into the offices of the Quakers in Lancaster in 82, December, and haven't stopped since then because I made a promise. I'll stay with it as long as I'm alive.
Why did you go with the Quakers?
So a lot of people historically, sociologically view Pennsylvania as conservative, but there are also conservative peace churches here. The Mennonite Central Committee, the Quakers. And so, a lot of those folks played a critical role in opposing the Vietnam War. And they look, I'm Jewish, and it's a much different vibe when you're in a Quaker meeting. They're very patient, and, they try to get everybody to be on the same page. In my first meeting, I just started yelling at everybody.
Attaboy.
Yeah.
They're like, who's this guy?
Right. They're sitting on their hard benches. And, it's like, man, I don't need a quorum to know I need to go to the bathroom. All right. But that's a wonderful current and a wonderful tapestry of Pennsylvania that you have these peace churches. Dating back to, the Paxton boys when they went and slaughtered people in Lancaster, you had people like the peace churches standing up. And so that didn't look, I'd done the Catholic worker. So what the hell, we might as well do the Mennonite, the Quakers. I tried out for the Scientologists, but they wouldn't take me.
No.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I took a sociology class in college. I was in school in Oregon, Willamette University, and that's where the Church of Scientology is organized, and learned a lot about Christianity. I also learned a lot about who serves the best food.
Who does serve the best food?
Scientologists.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Then you got to take a quiz, and when you say next of kin is Charles Manson and, Sid the Sledgehammer, it doesn't go well for you. Yeah, a very nice area in Portland, and never really got it. But look, I viewed Christianity as all kind of monolithic and the same. And then you go to a Black Baptist church or a poor Catholic church.
They have good food too. The Black Baptist, by the way, Eric.
Yeah, and you know what?
If you like Southern cooking, I mean, it's a little heavy. It's going to stick to your ribs and maybe your heart, but that's good food.
Yeah, I would tell you this. I've had some really good friendships with African-American Christians who have actually, when they made greens, have put brisket in it, since I can't eat the ham. Yeah.
Wow.
So it's kind of part of an obnoxious trait I have. It's like, hey, thanks for having me for dinner. Can't come over unless you cook the greens with brisket. Just saying.
Okay. All right. See, now we're getting to the bottom of some things here, Bill. I knew we were just getting heated up.
I'm so confused. I'm so confused at this point.
So let me ask you this, Eric. Can we kind of I'm not going to go back 45 years again. I want to kind of move over just a little bit to some Central Dauphin School District stuff. Just some specific things. Maybe have kind of like a speed round. Just bring us up to date, up to snuff on some things. Do you mind doing that? And then we're gonna.
I would prefer not to, but
then we'll not. Then we won't. Then we won't.
Let's move on to some other.
We have a good relationship with you as a school board member, and some other school board members. And if you're not here to talk about that, or you want to wait until you get somebody, okay, that's fine.
Thank you. Okay,
that's fine. We'll save those questions for next time. Okay. So, Bill, you want to? I haven't seen you raise your hand yet, Bill. Bill raised his hand.
I was going to ask Eric.
Ask a question.
I got to know Eric during the pay raise scandal, and are you the last guy standing when it comes to people who are, actively still looking at this thing?
I think there's some other group. I mean, Tim is retired. Barry is retired.
Yeah.
Gene has his own TV channel. Russ is probably not comfortable calling a reformer. I did meet with him. I called him. We were friends, and he's gone in another direction. And I just called him before we had the 20th anniversary press conference and said, we're going to move forward. Clean sleep was such an important and vital component.
Yeah.
And said, look, I don't really feel comfortable inviting you. And it was good. He came down later. We grabbed a meal together. But there's other groups that have arisen or have been around. The Committee of 70 in Philadelphia, March on Harrisburg. The difference for us is, and it's always been, is we're harder edge. If you're going to do this and you're going to go after corruption, you can't take sides. So, for us, we don't care about the party. We care who's throwing the party. And, we don't take sides. We take aim. So people may not like the style, but if you want to cut into corruption and change the way things go, you got to be ready to, I don't want to say go to war, but it's a contact sport. So I think Barry and Tim are probably in their 70s. Gene is like the Energizer battery. Who knows? But Russ could probably be close to retiring. So different time. It was one of the first times social media was used effectively. Mm-hmm. And I think the criticism we got is when we went after the Supreme Court justice.
Okay.
Yeah, at the time, Ralph Cappy, who was a Supreme Court justice, he may have even been the chief, said, even the mafia has ethics. These guys, and it's like, hey, dude, he's getting elected. It's the first election after the pay raise. We did our homework. We put out why we want people to vote against him. And we also opposed Sandra Schultz Newman. That was a little tougher because her husband had died, and it didn't feel right kind of being as aggressive. But I actually saw, when we argued the pay raise case in Philly, I saw Nigro there, and he said, he said, hey, I'm going to get my seat back. And I said, Russell, that's the problem, brother. It's not your seat. People will tell you whether you can have it back. Mm-hmm. And we haven't kept up a close correspondence since that time.
Let me ask you a question about Rock the Capitol. How in the world do you guys cover all those meetings? I mean,
Yeah, it's tough. So there's a couple things going on. We now have someone who just does videography. If you go to our website, we still haven't built out the Dauphin County because we cover all county commissioner hearings, and we also cover hearings where a lot of money is transacted. We cover the Bureau of Assessment and Appeal where properties are reduced or not, and we cover the IDA and the EDC prison board. So we got to find room for that. But and there's some meetings like the State Ethics Commission a couple times a year. Gaming control, all these meetings have something in common. They are on days and time that make it almost impossible for a working person to attend.
right. Yeah.
So, I mean, FIA on Thursday at 9 in the morning, it's on 7th Street. Nobody is going to go there. Gaming Control Board, 10 o'clock Wednesday. And the Gaming Control Board, and if you go to our website, we gave grades to everybody in terms of open records and sunshine. Gaming Control Board fought with us and said, we have speaking once every 3 months. I said, that's not how it works. All right. You have to have, and finally, to their credit, they agreed to do it. And what was the issue that we litigated aggressively is child abandonment. There's no uniform enforcement for child abandonment at casinos, and it happens all the time. 1, 2, 3 kids left in a car. It's winter. I mean, if I did that as a school director, I'd be in prison.
Yeah, why is that? People are just so obsessed with being there and gambling, and if they're hot, they don't want to leave. If they're cold, they want to make a comeback, right? They can't find it in their hearts to make their child a priority for that moment that they're trying to get their money back, right? Or trying to win some money.
Yeah, our position is this, Joe, is
that's just a crazy phenomenon. It's not a phenomenon, it's a reality. To me, right. That's insanity.
So you have on the opposite end at the Chester Casino, I think it is, a woman who stopped in to pick up a prize for her husband. I don't know, maybe they're less than a minute, lost her teaching career. Come on, let's try and figure this out. But I don't gamble, so I don't understand the pull. I know that gaming is big now on the internet and with young people. But, you see this, I mean, LCB and the Turnpike are probably the worst entities about how they transact business. And I don't see any appetite for change there. FIA has improved a great deal. I give them credit where credit is due. PUC is the last agency that refuses to provide public comment because we have a quasi-judicial exemption. We're talking about cases. I said, that's all very true. I said, at the end of the meeting, you're talking about nothing. And I think people would have liked to discuss the gas derailment in the western part of the state. Certainly want to talk about data centers, electric prices. So there's a lot of work to do. And, Brian, our videographer, is remarkable. He just goes wherever. Actually, he knows where to go, and everybody knows who he is. He's getting a little too comfortable, so he may have to fire him.
Oh boy. Yeah, the one thing I know, you mentioned data centers. With the work I do for Capital Wire, I see what's happening across the state. And over the last week, there's been a plethora of articles about data centers, all different types of topics. What's happening that's causing all this attention?
I'm not opposed to data centers. Actually, I sit on the board of Dauphin Highlands.
Yeah.
We may sell that for a data center. It's a craze and it's hysteria. If you back up, we published 2 articles that are on TMI Alert's website, and one of them is a testimony before the PUC. Another is an article just called "The Cost of Water." How much does it cost to use water? So we started getting involved the summer of August. I think it was 2024 or 2025. Amazon is on site at the Susquehanna nuclear plant. They're behind the meter, which means they don't want to pay distribution and transmission costs. They also need a ton of water. So we intervened. I thought that their legal petition was weak and inaccurate. They said they needed 60,000 gallons a day. minimum 5 million. So, and that grows. Now they're next to a nuclear power plant, Susquehanna. I think Susquehanna, by the time you're done with it, maybe 70, 80 million a day in consumptive use, meaning it's not going back. Right. So you have this water use juggernaut. And what we found, and at TMI, it's the same deal. They're going to so both those cases will litigate this fall. But what I wanted to point out is the gross inequity in the last year and a half across the Mid-Atlantic states. 4.3 billion invested in transmission upgrades for data centers. 4.3 billion. Data centers have paid 5%. And so when you have an agreement with the data centers, people need to understand that's 24/7, 365, baby. So at some point, somebody's going to have to make a decision. Who's in the front of the line at the water fountain, robots or people? I mean, during a drought, they're likely to get water before people or farms. And what makes it a little chilling, especially at 3 Mile Island, is, okay, we'll supply the workers and we'll supply the water. The energy is not available to Pennsylvanians. It's getting exported to the Midwest. Same thing up at Amazon. So you will see the price continue to speak, because what's happening, any new production or any, like TMI, any plants that are reopened, those are exclusive contracts, man. That TMI is not opening for the community. They're opening for Microsoft. So when you look at TMI, it's speculated, we can't prove it, that Microsoft will get reimbursed up to 200 to 300 million a year for their energy. So at some point, this is beyond David and Goliath. Out-of-state companies shipping their product to out-of-state recipients, and the folks here, not doing doing well. I think it took people a while to understand. The good thing about data centers, if they're in your community, not a lot of traffic, like warehouses. And the taxes are just unbelievable for the school district and the township and the county.
So let me ask you this, Eric, in kind of easy to understand, easy to decipher terms, what should the average person's concern be? The average person that lives in a community of where a data center is coming in or maybe coming in, what should their concern be? Living close to that data center or having to share land with the data center, to be their neighbor, I guess.
Yeah, I spent a day, because I was very cynical. I spent a day down in Northern Virginia. The older data centers are just not laid out right and used to have issues with noise. And they had a similar experience up in the Berwick area. What's interesting in the DC, Northern Virginia area, they're building data centers and cutting retail and housing into the data center complex. So, I'm not saying, they're not especially good to look at, but hey, neither are my girlfriends.
No, there's a lot that's not good to look at, though. I think that should be the least of somebody's worries.
So if you're looking at Northern Virginia, an acre now is $1 million. And if you look at the school districts, they haven't had to raise taxes. Again, assuming people spend money appropriately or and not abusing it. I think the problem you're going to see is that, I'll give you an example and tell me if I'm getting too far into the weeds. PJM, which is our grid, it used to be the gold standard. It used to be the best grid in the country. What's happening now is that demand for energy, short term. Remember, a nuclear plant, if you get it built in 10 to 12 years, you're lucky. So what has happened is a resurgence of coal. PJM spent $5.2 billion for new transmission lines to 3 West Virginia coal plants that were going to shut. Talon Energy kept 2 coal plants open in Baltimore. President Trump kept Eddystone open. So what people should know is that regardless of how you feel about nuclear, the tech bros just need the energy. So why I'm saying that is what I see Governor Shapiro and the legislature trying to do is fast track data centers without public input. So I think that's number one, what they should know. Number two, it's going to increase. There's no way it doesn't increase your price. I mean, it's the price. There's only so much electricity, and you can shop as much as you want, and that's a good thing. I participated in deregulation, but distribution, transmission, capacity, disk, all go up, and you got to pay for it. So I think people need to understand that. And number three, man, you got to get to your municipality and map out a strategy or protections. What I encourage people to do is to negotiate a CBA, a community-based agreement. And you can do that at the land use phase. People, don't throw up your hands. Look, these are smart, rich people. You can't tell me they're going to need a large swath of land to generate energy 5 years from now. Definitely not 10 years from now. So I predict that data centers are going to be the next generation's shopping malls.
So everything's going to get smaller with the data centers as they did with computers. I remember in the mid to late 80s, I worked for a major corporation, and we had like a whole floor dedicated to the computer system.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? The data centers will probably end up shrinking as technology progresses?
The one thing that won't change is they're going to need to upgrade the lines, because the lines right now are not built to carry that amount of electricity. So the lines will stay. But yes, I think the facilities, three things are going to happen. I think they'll find a way to do it with less water. I think they'll find a way to do it with less electric. And I think, I hope I'm wrong on this, I think most of them are going to be co-located facilities. I think as these plants get built, I think they're going to build their own source of energy on site. So if that occurs and they're behind the meter, they're just sucking energy without paying their fair share.
Okay.
Well, I have a question as far as the what's going on now with these PPL hearings.
Yeah.
I read things that people are concerned that we the consumer are helping to build this thing out. That's the distribution system for data centers. I mean, is that true?
It's very true. They're going to
wow.
say it's not. So they'll come back, and I was able to cross-examine some folks. This is just the preliminaries, like spring training. Next month or two, people will be throwing fastballs at folks' heads. So they're going to say it's because of two things. One is, upkeep, like tree trimming, making sure they have clean pathways. That burden has increased, and that, they need to maintain. And so my response is they've done an awful job since deregulation with tree trimming. So, tree trimming is because you're not doing it. And the issue with maintenance and repair, I've litigated case after case where they'll tell you, hand on the Bible, this is all we're going to need for 5 years or 10 years. So that's on you, man. A very profitable company last year. I don't have the right number, so I'm not going to say it. But if you look it up, PPL, very profitable, and their business strategy is basically to do lines and wires, because they got people that are hostage customers.
Mm-hmm.
So they're also sponsoring legislation right now to be permitted, this is huge, to go back and generate electricity.
What's the consumer advocate say about all this?
Consumer advocate's been really good. I mean, I don't know Daryl that well. But I knew Patrick. Again, I wish I knew him better. He did resign, and he had serious criticisms of the PUC, and I think he was absolutely right. I don't think the PUC is up to the task. Come on, it's Google, Amazon, Microsoft. They're just basically what happened today with the disk. You doubled what you could get. Happens every 3 months. People don't understand the capacity charge, the discharge, I mean, you look at your bill, and Joe, how many people do you think actually understand it?
I don't know. Let me ask you, is solar any haven for a consumer to get some help on the finances?
Yeah, it can be. I mean, solar is the fastest growing source of generation in the world. I can send that over to you. Solar and wind. You look at a country like Spain, which defies all political gravity. It actually encourages immigrants to come because they have the skill set of speaking the language where they can assimilate. Huge amount of solar. And the people need to understand with solar, you have battery storage. So what happens? I hear when it rains or the sun goes down. Well, my question back is, what happens if it rains and the sun goes down and you're sending all your electricity to a data center in Illinois? The hell are we talking about, right? I mean, they're not. So I think people need to have a sane and consistent energy policy, which means you're going to have some of everything. Right now, coal is making a comeback, maybe 5% of our portfolio, gas at 60, nuclear at 30. But then with nuclear, you got to ask yourself, TMI came online in 74, the same year as the Pinto. I don't see us cranking out new Pintos, but the nuclear plants came online in large part to combat Arab oil. So now we're gonna make a radical shift to nuclear, which is almost totally Russian and Kazakhstan fuel. Nobody's talking about it, really. I want to be dependent to them. You can throw in Australia. Canada makes some of the nuclear fuel, but I don't know if they're a friend or an enemy this week. So, the strategy should be level it out among a lot of different sources. We're blessed with a lot of natural gas.
Mm-hmm.
We are the second largest gas producing state. We have the second largest nuclear concentration. We're either 3 or 4 in coal. I mean, Wyoming's way out in front. But we have resources, which include water, include energy. I just wish we would stop and take the time to map out what our strategy is going to be. And, I don't know. Look, I've litigated against Amazon once, so I'm looking forward to that, and then Microsoft coming up. But look, everything to me is a football analogy. Everybody's got to play every game, and it ain't over to the fourth quarter. So we'll see if they have the stamina. I feel pretty good about our chances.
So Eric Epstein, question here for you. You spend a lot of time kind of keeping public servants in check and keeping them reeled in, keeping them honest. Could I get you to share with the viewers who you respect as a public servant? I'm sure there's more than one or two, but who do you look at and go, that's what that person signed up to do? You know what I mean? Like a true public servant, kind of not taking sides, Republican versus Dem, blue versus red, looking at the constituents' needs and really focusing on that. Who do you like, let's just say, in that realm of true public servants?
Is it federal, state, local, or all three?
Any, and they could be retired or current,
So growing up, we were big Truman supporters, and that's kind of where I take my lead. Truman was a blue collar working class.
That's who my dad liked, by the way. Yeah. And that's the first one he'll mention, or he used to mention.
Because he knew that you needed to protect the working class and grow the middle class to have a stable democracy. So Truman is somebody I still look at. I don't know if you guys remember, I really respected Senator William Proxmire from Wisconsin. He used to, I don't know if you remember, he was the one who used to hand out, I think, the Golden Goofy Awards. Or he every year would say, we spent $500,000 for this hammer. He just, and whenever, I don't think he ever spent more than $1,000 to get elected. On the Republican side, I thought I can't think of his name, Larry Hogan, had the ability to find center solutions. I liked Lowell Weicker, who was a moderate R. So to me, it was, I think the most impressive partnership probably comes from two people you wouldn't expect. Steve Reed and Arlen Specter, and a lot of people don't seem to have a positive impression of them. Fact of the matter is, you don't have a Navy Depot without them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was the time Steve had a remarkable memory, and things went wrong, and I sued him, and we didn't talk for 10 years. And later in life, this is going to really blow your mind. So later in life, Steve got sick, and we would go out to dinner every other month with Bill DeWeese. It was very interesting. But, you know, Arlen, the Republicans are saying, oh, my God, he's awful. Arlen got Alito and Roberts through with no resistance to the Supreme Court, a rare feat. Yeah, I mean, he was annoying. So, you know, I think you have to look at politicians you respect, but they also have to be people that get things done.
Right.
You know, and so, you know, with Reed, remember, we had the 3 Mile Island connection and some other deals. You know, on the R side, I worked well with John Shoemaker, really smart guy. And we were, look, after the referendum in 1982, where people voted in 3 counties to oppose restart, Hines fell in line, Specter fell in line, Thornburg fell in line. I felt, I'm saying this as a Democrat, Thornburg was the most impressive politician I worked with. He was smart, and, you know, I was an adult. It was pretty clear by 1984. It was like, Eric, this is over. We got to move forward. I get it. You know, he did what he could do. He was also an engineer, sharp guy. You know, and some of the other folks just had, I mean, Rendell and I did not get along. But
Rendell was kind of a guy you'd want to elbow up to at a bar and kind of talk sports and stuff like that. Not a governor, right?
Well, let me tell you this: we've had some nasty interactions,
and I'm not saying he wasn't a governor, but you know what my point is.
So in those days, Rendell would come to the Capitol, and he would have 5 newspapers he has already read. He didn't drive. And if you could get above the fold, you could, I don't say get to him, but get his attention. So after he beat Lynn Swan, the Inquirer said, what do you think? Yeah, I said it was really not, you know, a big accomplishment to beat an empty suit. And I said he was not given a license to pillage and rob. So I did PCN that night, and Amy Warden from the Inquirer called. And she said, Eric, you need to know something. And I'm saying, oh, my God, I dropped the F-bomb. And she goes, no. She said, the governor just, you know, got off the phone, and he's pissed. And he said that you're as mentally stable as the guy that ate all those people. I said, all right. So Mario Cattabiani, who you probably know, you covered his son, the baseball player.
Yeah.
Called me the next morning. He said, what do you think? And this is true. I said, I had called Chuck Ardo, and I said, Chuck, you know, if the governor's in town and he wants to have Passover dinner, he's willing to come over. I said at the time, I didn't know that he was allergic to Chianti and fava beans. And that was the end of that. I mean, but look, he was a very smart guy, and, you know, knew as a, you know, he had executive experience as a mayor. So, you know, and I don't think a lot of staff get enough credit. I mean, a lot of what happens is because of the staff. You know, they deserve some credit. You know, people in the executive branch. I mean, Joe, just the amount of people asking for stuff day in and day out. I'm surprised most legislators don't go postal.
Yeah.
So people shouldn't lose faith. There's really some really decent, genuine folks out there, but I think almost everybody comes to Harrisburg with, you know, good intentions, and they figure out, hey, after 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, my goal is just to stay, get the pension, you know, and move on. You know, it's human nature, but there are a number. I would also point out in terms of judges that before I leave the issue, Thurgood Marshall was a giant, and he was also an attorney for the NCAAP. So there's a lot of people throughout our history that have been up. Ben Franklin was a giant. I mean,
Yeah.
we tend to look at these guys like old wax figures. I mean, Franklin was a Renaissance man, morally a little challenged, but if you saw the Ken Burns series on the American Revolution,
No.
he did a interview with Firing Line, which is a conservative show which I've watched my entire life, and he said, "What you need to understand is that the founding fathers weren't perfect. You know, they were stand flaws. Did a great job. If you get a chance, check it out. I mean, he's been making movies for 50 years, and he looks like he's 12.
He's phenomenal. He's a gem.
Yeah.
Can I share one thing about Rendell?
Yeah, sure.
Joe? Well, you know, I like at that time period when he was in office, I was watching a lot of PCN.
Yes.
Of course, Rendell brought us gambling here in the state.
There we go.
Right. And I was watching, I think it was the House when they were voting on some legislation related to casino gambling. And it was like a shark fest in that everyone wanted a piece of that pie, of that money coming into the state.
Oh, yeah.
It was amazing to see that.
Yeah.
That
it was
going on.
It was also the big lie because they were saying it was for the Racehorse Commission and we want to bring back horses. And it was, just ask the guy in The Godfather about that. But, you know, and there were people, I mean, like Sam Rohr that were morally opposed. But after, you're right, Bill, after you kind of got over the point of, okay, we're going to have it. Feeding frenzy. Where would we be? I mean, it was supposed to relieve us a property tax. It didn't happen. But without the sin taxes, tobacco, gaming, alcohol, where would we be? I mean, it's a shame we have to live off of that. But I think that you will see a skill game tax in the next budget.
Okay, you think it's going to get through finally?
I do.
Yeah.
I think the number's going to come down. You know, Josh, again, part of my criticism with Josh Shapiro is I think he should spend more time in Harrisburg dealing with Pennsylvania problems. I mean, geez.
Well, it's clear as day that he's running for president to me. The amount of money he's putting into social media, he's spending our money on social media and all that.
Eric, could he have actually spent $1 million of our money, the taxpayers' money, on improving his own home?
Yeah, he did. I mean, so it was over 1 million. And what was frustrating about that is the complaint at the Ethics Commission was dismissed. So he's the type of politician that will spend in the next permission later. One of the things we did in our expose is, like, how many planes does a governor need? He has access to the PennDOT plan, a PennDOT plane. He has access to the Pennsylvania State Police plane, which he didn't even have to notify folks until recently. And he has access, I can't think of the gentleman's name, the casino, the gaming guy. He's Mitchell Rubin. He has access.
You know who he reminds me of? He reminds me of Mayor Reed, being at every murder, every fire. You know, he's everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, again, Stephen was a tragic figure. I didn't know anybody who you could go into and say, Steve, where can we get funding for A, B, C, or D? And he just rattled off. And one of the things people didn't know about Reed is he had visited the White House. I don't know if he did it for LBJ, but every president, Nixon, Ford, Carter, Reagan. So we were talking one dinner. We decided not to take Bill out because we couldn't take it. And I said, let me ask you something. I said, you spent a lot of time at the White House with Bush too. I said, so out of all these presidents you've had the, just honor and, spent time with, who was the most competent? Who was the smartest? He said, Bush too.
Wow.
And he said, look, Eric, you can believe everything you want to believe. He can connect. I think his foreign policy was awful. But Reed worked with Bush. This was bizarre, on some foreign policy in South America. And I had asked PCN after Rendell did this like 5-part series. I said, Steve said, I'm not going to just do one episode. So I got PCN to 2 and then he died. So, we have had some historical people in our past. Look, I had a good relationship with Hines, but Hines didn't have a good relationship with the staff.
Yeah,
So,
Reed was one of a kind, and God broke the mold with him. I mean, just such I'd say kind of a Renaissance guy. Like he knew a little bit about everything or a lot about a lot, and
yeah.
he wasn't afraid to. He was a roll up the sleeves guy. He wasn't afraid to sit and have a beer with didn't matter who in the what was it Dewey's Dry Dock or where was that place he used to like to hang out. But just an everyday guy in some respects, but obviously much more than that in other respects.
I think, I think you saw this with Fumo. Some people, and Fumo did a lot of good on the consumer side. And the same thing I told Steve, and he said, "Yeah," I said, "You did do a lot of good, but that doesn't give you the permission to do any bad." And the Wild West Museum, it was like, dude,
not good, not good at all.
yeah. Let's have our next meeting on planet Earth, Steve. But I did run into him. A funny scene was I was at the Senator home opener the year after he had been defeated. And I ran into him and he had a couple beers. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing here, man? He said, I just had to see it. I just wanted to see what it was like. I said, what do you think? He said, well, got to go. But he pulled the city out of a funk. I mean, we went from Daltrick to Swenson and then Reed. And, you have City Island, which wasn't used. It was off limits. You had the baseball team. You had the three-peat. Whitaker Center, I think, was a deal. Reed endorsed Rich O'Brien-Itkin. So he was astute. He would cross party lines to get things done.
Absolutely.
Didn't care. And I mean, my fear after being at the ICA meeting and attending these for 6 years, I don't know where Harrisburg is going. I hope it's a better place than it is now.
Hey, Bill.
Yeah.
I think Bill and I we touch base kind of like the day or two before we do these interviews and just make sure that we're on the same page. And I had 7 questions prepared for Eric, right?
Yeah.
Guess what? I asked 4 of them. Eric answered the other 3 without me asking him. Okay, so he was right on track the whole last hour. I got a lot accomplished here, Bill. You want to wrap up with anything?
I just want to take a little bit different direction.
Absolutely, go ahead,
Eric. Every time I drive from Lower Paxton down into Harrisburg, I don't know how many municipalities I cross.
Right,
it's all blurred together, right?
Yeah.
Do you think there's even a hint of a possibility of some sort of regionalization happening during our lives?
I don't, because we're a commonwealth. And, when Rendell was governor, there were 30 school districts they looked like they could consolidate. And it was just untenable, politically. People, saw their identity.
Yeah.
And about 10 years ago, I wrote a grant for, I don't know if you probably remember this, the Route 39 study.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the transportation, and they expanded it out to 743. It was advisory only. There were some good suggestions. You can't make people get along. One of the things, I don't know if it's peculiar to Pennsylvania, is because one board, authorizes something, doesn't mean the next board can't come in and wreck it or tear it down. So I just think it's, part of the current ugliness that's out there. I don't think compromise is a bad word. So in the old days, like 70s, even into the 80s in DC, those guys used to go out and socialize, Democrats, Republicans.
Right.
It's really harder to hate somebody when you know.
Yeah, I think Newt Gingrich put an end to that, and Newt Gingrich will admit to putting an end to that. And he said it's the biggest mistake he made in his entire political career. As he said, they are not your friends anymore. They are your enemies. Don't hang out with them. Don't eat with them. Don't go on vacation with them. Wives can't be friends with one another. Kids have to stop playing. I watched him say it, and he's like, huge mistake.
He was interesting. He's from Dolphin. And
absolutely. Yep.
He and Vin Weber from Minnesota and Robert Walker from Lancaster, were taking advantage of C-SPAN. And so when you talk about people, I had nothing in common with Bob Walker in Lancaster. But when I was living in Lancaster, Bob Walker always returned my phone calls personally.
Mm.
And I give him a lot of credit because when Gingrich took over, he decided to leave. Just perhaps felt leadership wasn't for him. But I didn't know that Newt said that because I thought
he did.
He had an incredible mind, a lot of good
Incredible.
ideas.
Yep.
I do remember that his caucus, after a while, would not let him meet with Clinton privately.
Yes, he had an incredible mind. I wasn't going there that he
No,
didn't,
I understand.
but, yeah.
It didn't work out. But you guys are doing a great job. We need more local, micro, whatever you want to call it, news. The Patriot doesn't cover up many of the issues, if not most, that you just described. And I'm going to be critical of the Patriot because I grew up with it, but they have a lot of reporters when it comes to a Penn State game. I'm a Penn State fan. I get it. They seem to be doing well with funerals.
Funerals.
Yeah.
That's called obituaries, Eric.
No. They cover the funerals where there's a big procession, right?
Oh, okay. All right.
It's a lot to get that entry in, man.
They've ramped up their funeral game.
I think it's fair to say that they're killing it on funerals. But
hey, Eric, how do you like the Patriot News and PennLive.com, the clickbait that they put out there?
I don't, and I get.
It's terrible.
It is terrible, but I think that's also. Look, I went back to Penn State to teach this semester, and Bill played a very critical role in that. And first, I realized as an old man, I'm 66, and these are very young people. Second, I realized, man, we got an attention span deficit. It takes a lot to get in. And thirdly, the most disturbing thing is they don't like to read. So, we're all coming from a generation where, normally two parents reading the newspaper from beginning to end. And what I've said, and I think I'm right, is we grew up at a time where you could have a water cooler moment where, I remember when Tiny Tim came on, Christ, I forget what show it was. It was
Laughing.
One of those shows. And it was like everybody was out of their mind. This guy had long hair.
Yeah.
It was just, we were crazy. But we all now have different experiences, and you can turn in to hear what you want to hear and reinforce what you have. So I would challenge everybody, don't just wait for the other person to stop talking. Try to listen.
Right. Okay, so he is Eric Epstein, and he is a local public servant. We didn't get into that, but we'll have you back with a couple of your cohorts on the and he's also a splinter, a thorn in the side of public servants who may be going awry. Okay, I don't know how else to put it. It's you're looking out for the rest of us, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
If you think I'm bad, you should be my daughter.
I don't think you're bad. That's what I'm trying.
I mean, as far as being annoying, I'll have to.
By
the way, I don't know if
Eric has one of the best sense of humor that are around. When I first met him, he called me a communist. So
you need to break the ice, Joe.
And a lot of those activists can be really stuck in the mud types of people, right? They don't usually have a sense of humor.
Liberals and conservatives, like activists, can be the least tolerant people because they're so tied to their position. I will tell you a Bill Bostic story.
Oh,
Bill! When Bill was the mayor, and he used to do the wrestling. I'm thinking, man, if I can figure this out, do you know how many votes this is? And so I went to see Bill wrestle once at the old tennis place out at
Sports City.
Yeah. Bill took me as my Christmas gift one year to the World Wrestling thing in
WWE.
And I was just like, okay, if people look, you can believe whatever you want to believe, but I'm thinking if everybody does think this is real, I got a long road ahead of me, man.
Wow.
And everybody seemed to be enjoying themselves, and Bill translated, and really, I don't know if we went to any other wrestling matches. I kind of got the memo, but I think your identity used to be the mayor of Lingelstown.
The proudest day I ever have been with my the proudest I've ever been with my grandson is I took him to WWE down in Hershey the one time, right? And I just kind of suffered through it, and we get done, and he was a kid. I holding his hand as we walked out through the crowd. I go, well, what'd you think of that? He goes, I said, you want to go back again? He said, no. I went, oh boy.
Well, just to bring everything together. In the old days, they used to have World Wrestling, or it was called something else.
WWF.
At the what's the name of the
Zembo Mosque?
Yeah,
Zembo. Yeah.
My only comment was I didn't realize there's no air conditioning.
Oh,
yeah, it was. I was getting ready to wrestle somebody.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, Eric Epstein, thank you so much.
Sure. Hey.
That was informative. It was fun. I got a chance to learn about some things that I hadn't known about, some data center information, and so we really appreciate it. We want to have you as kind of like a recurring guy, if you don't mind.
I don't mind. The money's good.
All right. Yeah. It's the best.
I owe you a chicken dinner.
Yeah, you do. All right, guys.
There's our sponsors. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Bill, good night. Thanks, everybody.